4 years ago, a 21-year-old boy came off the bench, scored a goal against Mexico and, in 3 weeks, became the best young player at a World Cup. Today, that same player is being booed inside his own stadium, by his own team's supporters. And the strangest thing is not that this happened, it's how it happened, because the real reason has almost nothing to do with football. Normally, this kind of story follows a simple logic. The player loses form, his numbers drop, and the fans turn against him. That's not the case. His statistics have improved every season since he arrived in England. Technically, he is one of the most decisive players in the squad, but that doesn't matter, and that's exactly where the story gets interesting. We're talking about a player who cost more than £100 million, signed in the middle of Chelsea's financial collapse, when the club was trying to prove to the world that it knew how to build a winning project around young talent. He arrived as a symbol, living proof that the gamble had paid off. The problem is that symbols, when they break in public. Because what is at stake here is not talent, quite the opposite, it is identity. There is a type of player that South American football produces in large numbers, intense, provocative, driven by an anger that is often the very fuel behind the talent. It works well when that player wears the shirt you support. It works terribly when he doesn't seem completely committed to it. And it was exactly this doubt, commitment, that began to define every gesture, every interview, every Instagram story from this player over the last 2 years. July 2024. Argentina has just won the Copa America. The team is returning by bus, celebrating. At some point during the celebrations, he grabs his phone, goes live and films his teammates singing. The lyrics mock the African heritage of French players, questioning whether athletes born and raised in France deserve to wear the national team shirts because of their parents' ancestry. It also includes a direct insult aimed at a specific opponent. It wasn't the middle of the night. It wasn't an accidental leak. It was a live broadcast, hours after the final whistle, sober, by his own choice. The detail that changes everything. He shared a dressing room every day with 5 black French players at his own club. He trained alongside them. One of those teammates posted the video hours later with a direct caption about what it represented. Others, without saying a word, simply unfollowed him on social media. The French Football Federation filed a formal complaint with the judicial courts over the case. FIFA even opened an investigation. Faced with all this, an apology eventually came, but attributed the incident to the euphoria of the victory, as if being happy explained the lyrics of the song. Compare this with other cases of players caught in embarrassing situations on social media. Normally there is isolation, silence, and a temporary withdrawal from the media. Here, months later, he was given the club captain's armband, and that is exactly where the story changes, because the problem was never a single video. It was a pattern that had already been visible on the pitch, long before any phone camera. 2 minutes into the match against England at the World Cup, the ball had barely found its rhythm, and he had already punched an opponent in the back of the neck. It wasn't a push in the heat of the moment. It was an isolated gesture, with the ball far away, without any direct provocation during the play. The trigger for the English fans' fury towards Enzo happened precisely in this game, in which Argentina eliminated England. Enzo scored the equalizer and celebrated by directly provoking the English supporters with his hands over his ears. To make matters worse, he posted photos on social media mocking the British while playing the song Wonderwall, considered an informal anthem in England. And it's not an isolated case. He frequently sarcastically applauds referees' decisions. The game against Spain is one example. He received a yellow card for the gesture. Minutes later, he went into a reckless challenge that sent the opponent flying, while already on a booking. Here is the real obstacle. No manager can fix this quickly, because it is not a tactical flaw. It is temperament, and temperament isn't solved with an analysis video on Monday. The numbers tell half the story. In his first half season in England, arriving in January 2023, 0 goals and 2 assists in 22 games. In the following season, his first full season, 7 goals and 3 assists in 40 games. In the most recent one, 2025-26, 15 goals and 9 assists in 56 games. A growth curve that any club would happily sign off on. The problem is that, during the same period, the list of cards, public arguments and internal suspensions also grew. Two numbers, rising together, telling opposite stories. But the strangest thing of all is this: Real Madrid, the club he praised in interviews, the club his name was linked to every transfer window, had to issue a public statement, not to confirm interest, to deny it. An entire club stopped to say, formally, in writing, "We are not interested in this player." That doesn't usually happen. Teams don't spend institutional energy denying something that was already obvious, unless the speculation has become too big to ignore. The response from the club he was playing for was also surprising. In an interview during the international break, he said he missed his former manager and casually mentioned that if he could live in any city in Europe, he would choose Madrid, because it reminded him of the lifestyle of Buenos Aires. Nothing more than that. No word about leaving, no transfer request. The club suspended him for 2 games anyway, one of them against a direct rival in the race for a Champions League spot, claiming that he had crossed the line. But in the same week, another player in the squad said, much more directly, that an offer from a major European club would be difficult to turn down. That player received no punishment at all. Compare that with a teammate from the national team, also a midfielder being courted by major clubs, who publicly stated that a move to an elite team is not out of the question for his future. No backlash, no punishment. His manager simply shrugged and said he understood. The difference isn't in the sentence, it's in who said it, and what that specific club needed to prove to the world about its own project. That completely changes how we read the situation. And here the story stops being about football and becomes about a type of situation that repeats itself anywhere there is too much talent inside a structure too small to contain it. Every company has that brilliant employee who is also difficult to manage, too good to fire, too troublesome to promote without creating resentment among the others. And every ambitious project, whether it's a football club or a company, is built around an implicit promise of stability. A promise that only survives as long as nobody truly tests it. He tested that promise with small gestures, an interview, a declared preference, a captain's armband worn without the commitment it was supposed to represent, and by testing it, he exposed something the club preferred to keep hidden. No contract, no matter how long, is capable of holding back the ambition of someone who already knows what he is worth. And it's only by looking at all of this together that the real answer appears. The reason this player became a target was not any isolated incident. It wasn't just the chat, the punch, the hard challenge, the captain's armband used in a contradictory way. It was the sum of all of it revealing 2 things at the same time. The first, he never hid, either in interviews or through his behaviour on the pitch, that he saw that club as a stage in his career, not as the final destination. The second, even more revealing, the club itself, by punishing him harshly while forgiving almost identical behaviour from another player, let slip what it was truly afraid of. The possibility that the entire project depended on the loyalty of players who, sooner or later, would want more than that club could offer. At the end of the day, the line between absolute success and cancellation in modern football is thinner than it seems. And this madness doesn't happen by accident. Paying a fortune for players has become a trend in the Premier League. In the video on the right, I'll explain how failure became the newest success in the league. Click and watch.